Hello and welcome to a new series simply titled I Recommend. These videos are not designed to be a full-on, detailed review. They're more of a casual look at some games I've been having fun with and that I wanted to share with you all. So first I'll explain what the game's about and what it has to offer. Then we'll talk about why I've been enjoying it, and after that we'll close the video with a quick conclusion. So what is Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormground? Well, it's a turn-based strategy game with some roguelike elements, and its gameplay takes place on hexes. It's also got some light RPG mechanics such as leveling up, learning abilities, and lootable gear. Obviously, this is set in the Warhammer universe created by Games Workshop, but more specifically, it's set in the Age of Sigmar. For those that don't know, this is a completely separate thing from the 40k Space Marine universe that most people know. As far as I'm aware, the 40k stuff is actually far more popular than the Age of Sigmar stuff, but that is of course subjective. Personally, I like both of them quite a lot, but I've always preferred swords and bows to guns and tanks, so I guess I lean more towards Sigmar myself. Me and the missus do paint and play the actual tabletop miniatures game as well, so I am quite familiar with it all. This game allows you to play as 3 different factions with 3 different playstyles. At first, you will need to do a few missions as the Stormcast Eternals, but when you die, you'll unlock the ability to use Nighthaunt and the Maggotkin of Nurgle as well. They all have their own way of doing things and have completely different units, heroes, and upgrades for you to earn and use. You can even use the Army Painter tool to recolor your army, which is a nice touch. As I mentioned earlier, the game uses a roguelike system to keep things interesting. If you were to look at the game overall, you'd see that there isn't that much content, but you're meant to replay it over and over, getting stronger each time. If you decide to go with the Stormcast Eternals, for example, you'll move into the first battle, which will be pretty easy to win, but then eventually you'll get to a battle where the enemy just simply outclasses you and you'll lose. At this point, your run of battles is lost and you go back to the start. However, on most runs you'll acquire XP and gear for your heroes and units, which you'll keep from run to run. There may be something that you don't get to keep, but from what I've seen, you keep the vast majority of the things that you earn. As you level up your leader and your units, you'll unlock skills for them, which you can customize and equip, allowing you to build your army the way you want. You can do this for all 3 armies, and they each have their own campaigns, so there is a lot to keep you busy. The turn-based battles themselves take place on a hex grid. You'll have access to powerful warriors, ranged specialists, sorcerers, and more as you attempt to defeat the enemy army. Some battles have a few added objectives like capturing a control point or activating 6 lock plates, but generally you'll just need to kill all of the enemies. You and the AI take turns moving your units around the board, attacking each other, using abilities, and of course trying to win. And occasionally you'll see some gear on the battlefield to collect, and you can do that by simply standing on that hex. You'll get units, gear, skills, and even some cosmetic items for your army. There is also an online component to the game, but being someone that doesn't play online very much, I didn't actually try this out for myself, but it is there if you want it. And I think that about explains all you need to know regarding the game itself, so let me explain why I've been enjoying it. Firstly, I think it's important to say that I haven't completed everything in the game, but I do really like what I've played so far. I think it probably goes without saying that being familiar with the Warhammer world would be beneficial, although I don't think it's 100% vital. It's just kind of cool when the game gives you a unit of Stormcast Liberators or a Putrid Blight King and you know exactly what they are. That said, I still think the game is good enough to be enjoyable regardless of how well you know the Age of Sigmar. There is a lot of lore and backstory in here for those of you that want to read it and get a better understanding of what's going on, but as I said, I think having at least some prior knowledge would be helpful. I mean, I'm pretty happy with the 3 factions that they decided to focus on, but if you know nothing about Age of Sigmar, I could see you being a little bit underwhelmed by the selection. And normally I'm not into the whole roguelike gameplay design. In general, I'd rather play a longer game that allowed me to increase in strength over time, rather than a game that's designed in such a way that you're unlikely to succeed from the start. Some people may argue that's the point, and I do actually get that. I mean, my missus has beaten Hades multiple times and I wasn't able to stand playing it long enough to beat it once. So it is definitely a subjective thing. I actually do think Hades is an incredible game, it just doesn't sync up with what I want out of it, if that makes any sense. Also, I could see some people saying that, well, you like Dark Souls and Bloodborne and Elden Ring and all these kind of things. Those games kill you over and over again as well. And to that, I would say, yes, you're absolutely correct, but I think the difference is that you don't have to go back to the very start of those games if you die. Dying in those games is a minor setback, not a restart, and that, at least in my head, is the difference. It never feels like it's really punishing you or anything like that. The battles and the encounters are somewhat randomized, so you don't exactly know what you're going to be facing in each run. You do often get a choice of which battles to accept on a run, but the next time through it could be completely different. I think it's the fact that you get to keep nearly everything you acquire, so it never really felt mentally like I'd failed. It really is a case-by-case basis when it comes to these games, but dying or losing a battle feels fine in this game, but in Hades every death felt like a failure, at least to me, even though in reality it kind of isn't. As far as I can tell in Stormground, if you acquire a unit, you own that unit forever. If that unit dies, I think it's only unusable for that run and will be returned to you on the next run. You can spend a rare resource to revive a unit during a run, but in general I think it's dead until you start a new run. If you equip a certain weapon or item to a unit and that unit dies, I'm pretty sure you don't lose those items either. From what I've played, that seems to be the case, but there could be some small nuance to this that I'm missing. Either way though, it's really fun to collect all the items and the skills for your units, and the game is quite generous with giving them out, which is always nice. While the gameplay is turn-based, I do think it moves along at a nice pace. There was only a few instances that I can think of where the performance wasn't quite up to par, but they weren't really much of a problem at all. I'm playing it on a PS5 and there was a few times where a specific Nighthaunt enemy explodes. I think it's the Myamorn Banshees if I'm not mistaken, and the game kind of struggles to calculate the knockback effect. There was also a few times where I ended my turn and the enemy AI took a long time to take over and do anything at all. It was maybe around 10 to 15 seconds of literally nothing happening. It didn't freeze or anything like that, so I can only guess that again the game was struggling to calculate the moves. Other than that though, there wasn't really any problems. I'm not really sure how it plays on PC or last-gen consoles, but I do know that the Switch version is unfortunately pretty bad from what I've read. I generally don't put much stock into things like Metacritic, but it's currently sitting at a 5 from critics and a 2.7 user score, so there you go. And on that note, I think it's time to move on to the conclusion. In my opinion, Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormground is a fun little roguelike distraction. It's not a huge or amazing game by any stretch, mainly because it was never meant to be. For all intents and purposes, it's an indie game being sold at an indie price, and I think you could do much worse indeed. It's not going to blow you away, but I had fun with it, and I would tentatively recommend it to you. I wouldn't highly or strongly recommend it to you, but if you know Age of Sigmar and you like turn-based strategy, I think it's a decent game. If you consider what you actually get for the price you pay, I'd say it's a good deal and it's worth considering. And so there you go, that's my views on Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormground. It's available right now on all consoles and PC. Price-wise, it seems to be about £16 in the UK and around $20 in the US at the time of posting this video, but if you can grab it on sale, that would be even better. I actually managed to get it for around £10, which is I think around $15 US, and that would be just about ideal, at least in my opinion. If you enjoyed the video, I really hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel, and if you like what I do here and want to offer your support, please check out the first link in the video description down below. But with all that said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.